I'm reviewing every MCU movie in chronological order until Avengers Doomsday is released. And this week, I'm reviewing The Incredible Hulk. Do you guys remember when we had a Hulk that was scary, intimidating, and overall just tore shit up? You guys remember that? Because I do. And this is what we had in this movie. Overall, do you just remember when Hulk was the Hulk? Now, arguably, Hulk is like a top 10 comic book character. Personally, I feel like this was peak Hulk. You know, just when this guy showed up, you know there was going to be havoc, you know that smashing was going to be involved. And you had something to look forward to when, you know, the big strong hero shows up. I guess what I'm trying to say is we had the best Hulk. I gotta say on this rewatch here, I think Edward Norton did such a good job portraying Bruce Banner that it felt like there was two characters, you know, within one, obviously, because they're both in the same body in a way. And he did a good job in showing that there was more dimensions than just a, you know, scientist that gets angry and turns into a big fucking monster, right? He gives this character heart, which I feel like hasn't been replicated since this movie, hasn't been formulated to work with Mark Ruffalo. If I'm just gonna call it out, Mark, sorry dog, it's just I'm gonna turn to Randy Jackson. It's a no from me, dog. They do skip over the origin story, but it doesn't feel like I skip a beat really with, you know, what I know from the Hulk. This guy had a big accident, turned into a monster, and he's on the run. Then you pick up from there. Lastly, you know, after this first watch was the antagonists were memorable and their motives weren't really outlandish. You can kind of see where they're coming from with this. Now, giving credit where it's due, where Hulk smashes it out of the park, pun intended. Again, Edward Norton gives a great performance, really brings more dimensions to Bruce Banner. And, you know, it's great because he's begging for help, but he's also terrified of who he's bringing into this fucked up world. You know, there's no one really safe that goes into his life. And then adding on to that character, he has brains, but he also has wit. And along with that, he's not necessarily a pushover either. You know, he's kind of staying active on how to be protective of himself, a little bit of self-defense, and he's cautious, but, you know, he's not shying away from necessarily defending himself because he knows that he might Hulk out. He's gonna defend himself, and I respect that. Getting into another character, the main antagonist, if you will, is General Ross. Now, obviously, if you've seen the movie, he turns over a different leaf towards the end. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about for the majority of the film, he's exactly how I want him. Pause. Big pause on that. Look, he's a guy with a mission and he's willing to make sacrifices to get it done. And, you know, that kind of leaves a mess for the Hulk to have to clean up or Bruce to have to clean up. Pretty much both, all right? And I like that. I like that we have this character that's, you know, so focused on, hey, this guy is a problem, this guy is a threat, and he's also a weapon that I want to turn into my own personal weapon, have an army of this shit, and I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to make it happen. I like those kind of villains. He has his motives, and he also has his reasons. So, you know, they kind of blur the lines between the two, but I like that. Another antagonist that really shows up at the end, the Abomination. The Abomination, I think, is one of my favorite villains that they introduced into the MCU. And he definitely gives Hulk some problems. You know, Hulk's never faced anybody that can really do something to him, that can really like give him a punch and he'd be like, oh, damn. Look, Hulk is basically like a Samoan meeting another Samoan in real life. Basically, it's an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And it creates for a great battle. It creates for a great, you know, climax. Pause. And this is even before he really turned into the Abomination. You know, Emil Blonsky is the guy's name. He was giving Hulk problems too, even as a regular dude. Now, he wasn't necessarily regular. You know what I'm talking about, though. He got some serum in him, started getting a little cocky. He was basically off like some Henny, and he was ready to throw hands with Hulk. And he was doing it, but he got a little too cocky. And I wish that we got more of him, but I'm not talking about the shit that was in She-Hulk. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the Abomination, the problem. Now, tone-wise, this movie keeps you on your toes, and I really do appreciate that. The Hulk feels like a monster, and to a degree, he is a monster. The Hulk feels like a monster to Bruce and a hero to the audience. I really like how they pulled that off, because you could see the fear in Bruce when he's worried about, damn, am I gonna Hulk out? Is this guy gonna come out and start tearing shit up and hurt people? And to the audience, you're like, I'm ready for that. I want to see that. And you know, Hulk doesn't necessarily cause havoc to innocents. He really wants to be left alone. But you know, there's some people that get in the way of that. Now let me get into what didn't necessarily work for me. I thought Betty's acting was a bit weak. I felt like a lot of the times when she was talking, it was like she was out of breath and whispering, Bruce, come with me. Like, I wasn't really fucking with that. I didn't like that. Now that's me being kind of an asshole to the actress. I think that she just didn't do the best job. I like Betty, but I just don't think that she portrayed her that well. And I'll say this, and I don't mean it in necessarily a bad way, but the CGI is a little bit dated, and you can tell when you're watching it, you know. And if you're comparing it to what the MCU had already delivered with Iron Man, you'll see a clear difference. I'm not saying that it was bad, but it just doesn't, you know, compare when you're looking at the two films. And I just recently got done watching, you know, Iron Man 1 and 2. So I'm a little bit, you know, used to seeing something a little nicer than what we got in The Incredible Hulk. But I do like the model that they used for this Hulk. You know, he's ripped and he's ready to fuck shit up. I feel like the new model with Mark Ruffalo looks like, you know, kind of the dad build. You know, he's not necessarily like ripped like that, doesn't have the abs. You know, he's kind of like a blue collar dad. You know, you don't want him to come home and whoop your ass when you bring home a report card full of Fs. But you know, you can see that he's strong and, you know, built. But with this one, it was like, yo, he was hitting the gym. Definitely a problem. You know, definitely intimidating. Now, just to circle back, we had the best Hulk. Like point blank, you know, simple as that. We had the best Hulk. This version of Hulk didn't back down from a fight. He wasn't cowering, afraid. This Hulk was ready to jump out. He was damn near begging to, and he was ready to punch a hole through you. I appreciate that. I miss that in a Hulk. And here's something that maybe you won't agree with me, and maybe you will. He wasn't goofy. He was intimidating. I didn't see this Hulk as a, you know, I don't know, joke. I guess that's the only way I could really put it. You know, the next version that we see isn't horrible, but once you get to phase 3, he's damn near unrecognizable. He just isn't the same guy that we saw, that we fell in love with, or at least I fell in love with. Pause. Is The Incredible Hulk appropriate for kids? I'm gonna say yeah. Now there's some scenes in there that are a little bit scary, but I would say if you're above the age of, I don't know, 8 years old, you can definitely handle this movie. You can watch it with your kids, and you're really rooting for the Hulk throughout this whole movie. There is a little bit of some sexual stuff going on in there, but they kind of catch themselves because, you know, the Hulk can't really do much. His heart rate goes up. He's ready to, you know, explode, you know. So they don't really explore that a lot. It's kind of a joke a little bit, but, you know, it's about 5 seconds of that and they cut it off. So not too bad. Now also, what can you learn from the Hulk? What can your kids take away from it? What can you take away from it? Now, what you think might be a curse or a demon might actually be the thing that helps you persevere and pull through some of these hard times. You know, the Hulk was something that Bruce Banner looked at as like, it's such a burden. It's something that he's trying to get rid of, you know, get out of his system. But really, it's a part of who he is. And he tries to run away from that. And once you get to the end of this movie, you see him, you know, meditating, his eyes turn green, and you see that he's in quote unquote control. But that's what I feel like the point of the movie is. What you're taking away from the Hulk is turning that thing that you might resent about yourself into something that is useful, something that can benefit other people. The Hulk ultimately is a hero in the Marvel Universe. Definitely not the cleanest hero, but someone that does help save the day. And sometimes we have to trust in ourselves that in times of crisis, we will survive and maybe even save others. All right, now, last but not least, where does Hulk rank in the MCU? Yeah, dude, I'm kind of becoming predictable. You probably thought I was gonna pick B, and yeah, I think it's a B tier. I don't think it's A, I don't think it's S, obviously. but I think it's solid for an introduction to, you know, this character. And I really do wish that they had kept it, you know, Edward Norton as the Bruce Banner Hulk. But, you know, things change, and what the hell, we got some pretty good movies out of, you know, Mark Ruffalo anyway. But, you know, it is what it is. Let me know if you guys agree. And hey, if you guys want to keep up with more Marvel Monday reviews, subscribe to the channel and check out the channel. I got more videos, and I know last week I didn't put out a video on Monday. Sorry about that. I had a hectic fucking week. But you guys understand. You guys are just, you know, human like me. Or maybe you guys are like Hulk and you got pissed off, smashed the computer. I don't know. But anyway, check out the other video that I'm going to be posting. It's my Thor review. Check it out. It's pretty good.